Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder, Chapter 7, Part 3. You don't have to tell Bill about this, do you? Boyd thinks I was home all night, and I really don't want him to find out. Hannah made one of her lightning decisions, and she hoped she wouldn't regret it. I'll tell Bill what happened, but I'm not going to use your name, Danielle. There's no reason he has to know. Oh, thank you, Hannah. You don't know how much I appreciate this. I wanted to say something sooner, but... I understand, Hannah interrupted her. You couldn't say anything without letting Boyd know that you were with Ron. Danielle dipped her head in a nod. She still looked beautiful, even though her makeup was smudged and her eyelashes were stuck together in clumps from the tears she'd shed. Hannah was amazed at the difference between them. Every time she cried, which wasn't often, her nose turned as red as the light on top of Bill's cruiser, and the skin around her eyes puffed up. It was pretty clear that when they'd handed out the gorgeous chains, women like Danielle and Andrea had stolen her share. Take a couple of minutes and fix your makeup. Hannah gave her a bracing smile. Your mascara really is running now. Danielle looked scared again. But Boyd'll know, and he'll come looking for me if I'm not out soon. I'll find him and I'll tell him that you got a piece of dust in your eye. Hannah helped her up and propelled her toward the mirror. Don't worry, Danielle, your secret is safe with me. I know, Moish, I was gone a long time. Hannah scooped up the orange blur that hurled itself at her ankles when she opened her condo door. That action seemed to appease the needy feline because he started to rumble deep in his throat. He licked her hand and Hannah laughed. I'm home to stay now. Just let me make one phone call and then we'll have our bedtime snack and hit the pillows. Moish followed her out to the kitchen and watched as she poured herself a glass of white wine from the green gallon jug of Chablis that sat in the bottom of a refrigerator. It was far from the fine wine, and Hannah knew the difference, but it was much cheaper than Saumony or Bayer PM. She opened the cupboard to grab one of her antique dessert dishes that her mother had given her as a Christmas present and filled it with Moish's favorite brand of vanilla yogurt. Her mother would be horrified to learn that the only one who'd ever used one of the cut-glass dessert dishes was the cat who'd shredded her stockings. Okay, we're all set. Hannah clicked off the kitchen light, and Moish preceded her into the living room. He hopped on the coffee table and waited for Hannah to set down the dessert dish. You can start, Moish. I'll drink my wine while I talk to Bill. Hannah watched as Moish began to lap up the yogurt. She didn't know if it was usual feline behavior, since she'd never shared her home with a cat before. But Moish had perfected the act of eating and purring simultaneously. Bill hadn't arrived at the fundraiser by the time she'd packed up, and Hannah assumed that he was still at his desk, doing battle with the quadruplicate forms that were required by the latest Paper Reduction Act. She punched out the number of the sheriff's station and was rewarded when Bill answered on the first ring. Bill? Hannah frowned. Her favorite and only brother-in-law sounded tired and out of sorts. It's Hannah. I managed to identify the woman with the pink lipstick, but I can't tell you who she is. Bill's reaction was loud and predictable, and Hannah set the phone down on the table. She knew she should have been more careful about the way she'd phrased that particular bit of information, but she'd exceeded her tact quotient for the day. When the volume of irate squawks had diminished somewhat, Hannah brought the phone back to her ear. Listen up, Bill. This woman doesn't have anything to do with the murder. I'd stake my life on it. And she split up with Ron right after they stocked the school cooler. The only way I could get her to tell me anything at all was to promise that I wouldn't reveal her identity. The squawks were fewer this time around, and Hannah settled for merely holding the receiver away from her ear. When they stopped, she continued. I can't break my promise to her, Bill. You know how the people in Lake Eden are. If the word gets out that I betrayed her confidence, nobody will trust me enough to give me the time of day. I don't like it. But I guess we'll just have to play this your way. Bill sounded mollified. You can talk to this woman again if we ever need her, can't you? Of course I can. She was cooperative and she's very grateful that I'm keeping her identity a secret. You'll probably get further with her if she thinks of you like a friend. Remember, Hannah, I don't want you to tell anybody that you're in on the investigation. You can talk to Andrea, but that's it. I'm not writing your name on my reports. I'm just referring to you as my snitch. You're a snitch? Hannah took a sip of her far from premium wine. A snitch is a person whose identity is protected by the investigating officer. You must have learned that from those detective shows you're always watching. Hannah rolled her eyes at Moish. I know what a snitch is. Why can't I be your undercover agent? My undercover agent? That made Bill laugh, but once he realized that Hannah wasn't laughing with him, he backtracked fast. All right, consider yourself my undercover agent. What else have you got? The woman with the pink lipstick told me that Ron got into a fight at Twin Pines last night. She thinks he cracked a tooth because his jaw swelled up. Remember when I told you I saw him cupping his jaw this morning? Right. You said you thought he was thinking about something important. I've got it right here in your interview notes. Well, I guess I was wrong. His tooth hurt, and that's why he had his hand on the side of his face. There was a moment of silence, and Hannah heard a pen scratch. Bill was taking notes. He finally said, That makes sense. Did this woman know who Ron fought with at the casino? No, it happened before she got there. I'll try to find out for you, Bill. I know I asked you to nose around, but this isn't a game, Hannah. Bill sounded worried. Ron was murdered in cold blood, and the killer won't hesitate to take you out if he thinks you're on to something. Hannah swallowed hard. The image of Ron's lifeless body flitted across the screen of her mind. You're scaring me, Bill. Do you really think it could be that dangerous? Of course it could. Promise me that you'll be very careful, Hannah, and call me right away with anything, even if it's 4 a.m. I will. Good night, Bill. Hannah shivered as she hung up the phone. She'd been thinking of Ron's murder as a puzzle to be solved. But Bill had reminded her that it was dangerous to try to uncover a killer. As she finished her wine, Hannah decided that she'd be a lot more cautious in the future. There was a plaintive yowl from the direction of the coffee table, and Hannah saw that Moish was doing one of his incredibly wide kitty yawns. It was definitely time for bed. She scooped him up, carried him into the bedroom, and set him down on the mattress. When she was ready for bed, Hannah climbed under the covers and pulled her roommate over for a cuddle. But Moish had been a loner too long. Sweet words and ear scratches, tabby treats would never turn him into a tame, obliging house cat. He permitted a few pets, but then he moved over to claim Hannah's other pillow and ignored her completely by going to sleep.